You've been lied to. Every movie, every book, every legend about the Old West ended the same way. The gunfighter dies with honor, facing his enemy, hand on his gun. That's Hollywood. The truth? Most gunfighters didn't die in duels. They didn't go down fighting. They died in ways that would destroy the entire myth if people actually knew. Shot in the back while drunk, killed by disease in a filthy room, murdered by a nobody whose name you'll never hear. Wild Bill Hickok? Assassinated from behind. While playing cards. John Wesley Hardin? Shot in the back of the head. Billy the Kid? Ambushed in the dark. The Old West didn't care about your reputation. It didn't care about fairness. And it sure as hell didn't care about giving you a hero's ending. So why does everyone still believe the lie? Let's go back to the 1870s and 1880s. The American frontier. Lawless territories where violence was currency and reputation was survival. Towns like Tombstone, Dodge City, Deadwood, dust, sweat, whiskey, blood soaked into wooden floors that were never cleaned. Gunfighters were not lawmen. They were not heroes. They were killers who happened to be on the right side of a badge sometimes, or the wrong side. It depended on the week. Men like Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Clay Allison, Tom Horn. These weren't protectors. They were enforcers, gamblers, hired guns, men who solved problems with bullets because that's what the system rewarded. And here's what nobody tells you. The Old West had no retirement plan for killers. You couldn't just stop. You couldn't walk away. Once you had a reputation, every drunk kid with a gun wanted to prove himself by taking you down. Every town you walked into, someone was watching, waiting. Fame was a death sentence on a slow timer. So what did these men do? They kept moving, town to town, saloon to saloon, always looking over their shoulder, always one drink away from a mistake. And here's the thing about mistakes in the Old West. They were final. You didn't get a fair fight. You didn't get a countdown at high noon. You got shot in the back while taking a piss. You got poisoned by someone who smiled at you an hour earlier. You got killed by a 19-year-old nobody who wanted to be famous for killing you. This wasn't control. This was chaos. And history chose a version of their deaths that sounded better than the truth. Let's talk about Wild Bill Hickok. August 2nd, 1876. Deadwood, Dakota Territory. He knew he was in danger. He told friends he felt it. He always sat with his back to the wall in saloons. Always. Except that day. That day, someone was already in his seat. And instead of waiting, instead of trusting his instincts, he sat down with his back to the door. Mistake. A drifter named Jack McCall walked in. Nobody important, nobody dangerous. Just a drunk loser who'd lost money to Hickok the night before. McCall walked up behind him, put a gun to the back of his head, and fired. Wild Bill Hickok. The man who survived gunfights, ambushes, war, died because he sat in the wrong chair. That's not a legend. That's not Hollywood. That's just stupid luck running out. And it gets worse. John Wesley Hardin, the most dangerous gunfighter in Texas, killed 20 to 40 men depending on who's counting. Fast, ruthless, feared. How'd he die? Shot in the back of the head while rolling dice in a saloon. By a constable. In 1895, he never even saw it coming. Billy the Kid? Same story. July 14th, 1881, Fort Sumner, New Mexico. Pat Garrett, former friend, turned sheriff, waited in the dark in Pete Maxwell's bedroom. Billy walked in unarmed, asking, "Ken S? Who's there?" Garrett shot him twice in the chest. In the dark. No warning, no duel, no last words. Billy the Kid died confused, in the dark, killed by someone he used to trust. You see the pattern? These men didn't lose fair fights. They lost their paranoia. They got tired. They trusted the wrong person. They sat in the wrong seat. And the West didn't care about their reputation when it killed them. Now here's where it gets even darker. Some gunfighters didn't even die from bullets. Tom Horn, legendary tracker, enforcer for cattle barons, killed dozens of men, feared across Wyoming. How'd he end? Hanged. November 20th, 1903. Convicted of murdering a 14-year-old boy, a crime he may not have even committed. His own confession was allegedly obtained while he was drunk, recorded by a lawman hiding in the next room. Tom Horn died on a scaffold, sober, doubting his own guilt, betrayed, by the same system that had paid him to kill for years. Not a shootout, not a blaze of glory, just a rope and a trapdoor. If you're starting to realize everything you thought you knew about the Old West was a lie, hit that subscribe button, because this story gets worse. Let's talk about disease. Doc Holliday, tuberculosis. The man survived the gunfight at the OK Corral, multiple assassination attempts, and a lifetime of making enemies. He died in bed, November 8, 1887, Glenwood Springs, Colorado, coughing up blood, delirious, alone. His last words? This is funny, because he always thought he'd die with his boots on. He thought he'd go out fighting. Instead, he died in a sanitarium, too weak to stand, killed by a disease he'd been carrying since he was a teenager. Clay Allison, drunk, fell off a wagon. Wheel rolled over his neck. July 1887. One of the most dangerous men in New Mexico, killed by a freight wagon because he was too drunk to stay seated. The Old West didn't give you a dramatic ending. It gave you whatever was convenient, and then history rewrote it. Here's what nobody talks about: the aftermath. When a famous gunfighter died, the story didn't end. It got worse. Wild Bill's killer, Jack McCall, bragged about the murder for months. He was arrested, tried, and hanged, but in the trial, witnesses couldn't agree on what happened. Some said McCall was hired. Others said it was revenge. Others said he was just drunk and stupid. Nobody knew. Nobody knows. Billy, the kid's death? Pat Garrett wrote a book about it. Changed details, made himself the hero. Left out the part where he shot an unarmed kid in the dark. And here's the thing. People believed him, because the myth was better than the truth. John Wesley Hardin spent 16 years in prison before he was killed. He studied law. He tried to go straight. He failed. And when he died, newspapers celebrated, called it justice, called him a monster. But nobody asked why the constable who killed him shot him in the back. Nobody questioned it, because by then Hardin was a story, not a person. Tom Horn? His execution was controversial even at the time. Witnesses said he was framed. Others said he deserved it. The truth died with him. The courts didn't care about evidence. They cared about closing a case. This is what happened to gunfighters. They became stories while they were still alive. And once you're a story, people stop caring about the truth. They care about the version that fits the myth. And the myth says gunfighters died with honor, facing their enemies, fighting to the end. But the truth says they died like everyone else. Badly, stupidly, unfairly, shot in the back, hanged by the system, killed by disease, run over by a wagon. This ending was never proven. It was just chosen. The Old West didn't create heroes. It created myths. And those myths required better endings than the ones these men actually got. So history cleaned it up, gave them duels, gave them honor, gave them last words worth remembering. But the real endings? Those were messy, random, pathetic. Because that's what violence does. It doesn't care about your story.